Is it also a perfect thing to do to help yourself get over any kind of shame you have in life? Also, maybe part of the reason why we're doing it today. Merry meet and welcome. I'm Taylor, and today we're going to be starting all of our pizza essentials and then making our pizzas, because you know we are cooking from friends, and that means we got to do the Joey special, which is 2 pizzas. So we're going to build up to that. Today we're going to be focusing on the pizza dough itself. So we're going to be making the full recipe for this. It does yield 4 13-inch pizzas. I've made this pizza dough before with only half and it worked just as well. So just make as much as you need and adjust the recipe as needed. And then I'll also share with you the other adjustments that I ended up making just based off the supplies I had, because we're here to make our lives easier. Check in with you soon. Merry meet again. So now we're back, and I have 2 cups of warm water that I have also dissolved 2 teaspoons of sugar into for our yeast. So the recipe I'm not following exactly because I did not have active dry yeast, I had instant yeast, and so I'm following the recipe from the back of the packet and using that water and that food, because typically you use salt or sugar to help feed the yeast. So I'm using what that recipe calls for rather than this. That way I can make sure that my yeast definitely blooms, because that's honestly probably the most important part of the pizza. So I want to follow those directions the most. And then with this, we also are going to be looking at the fact that I reduced the flour by about a cup to accommodate for the lesser water as well. So let's go ahead. We're going to put our yeast in here and just give it a little bit of a stir. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead, let that sit there. I'll keep this on here for you guys to see what it looks like as it blooms. And while it does that, I'm going to oil a bowl. So I have a very large bowl. It's my largest bowl, so hopefully it is big enough. And I'm just going to use some of this olive oil and just lightly coat it, because I just want to make sure that when we put the pizza dough in here to prove that it does not stick to the sides of the bowl. And that's all you need it for. All right, with our yeast bloomed and our bowl oiled, we're going to set both of these to the side, clean up a little bit, and I'm gonna grab our dry ingredients. And we'll be right back. All right, merry meet again. And so now we're going to take our dry ingredients. We have about 6 cups of all-purpose flour, or you can use a special Italian flour if you have access to it. I believe it's like called a 00 flour. And we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of sugar and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm personally using sea salt because I have a lot. And then we're just going to gently mix this because the ratio is so significant. Sorry about that. Our camera actually died in the middle of stirring there. Essentially, I was just saying, since the ratios are so different, you want to make sure to gently stir and just kind of try to evenly distribute, and that way all the salt and sugar isn't just right there at the top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make what's called a well in your dry ingredients, and we're going to then take our yeast, which has been just getting even more fermented, and pour that into our well. And then we're going to mix it all together. And then I'm just personally grabbing all of this yeast Walta. And we're gonna mix this in here until we get what's called about a shaggy dough. And then once we have that done, we're going to remove this towel, flour it, and then we're going to knead the dough until it's smoother. So yeah. Since I'm using my biggest bowl for the for its proofing, this is my second biggest, so I feel like it's not too big, so I might end up dumping it a little bit sooner. So I'm gonna move this part right now so I don't get it too dirty. I know it's a towel, but it's a decorative towel because it's just not too absorbent, so that's why I ended up using it for decor. because the ones that I was using for decor before were super absorbent and they got dirty super fast. All right, so this is decently mixed with my spatula. I'm gonna switch to my hands now. I have some flour off to the side. I just put that on my hands real quick. And then as you add flour, it'll help get those little dough pieces off. And then since we're just getting into the flour right now, we're not dumping it out, but we're gonna go ahead and flour our surface here. We don't need too much. Okay. Ooh. It's still sticky because a lot of the flour is still at the bottom. So, and then another reason why I decided to go with 6 cups of flour in the beginning is because if I feel like it is needing more, I can just literally add the flour. It's a lot easier to add flour versus water. Don't get me wrong, you can do both. Okay, so this is a decent, it's probably more than shaggy because I've kneaded it a little bit in here, but shaggy is just when it has like these bits coming off of it. Like my hands are shaggy right now. But we're now gonna go ahead. Ooh. Hopefully this is not disturbing anyone. We're gonna grab more flour to help us take that off. And then also to serve the purpose of being a landing. So we're now that we have that shaggy part, we're gonna dump this out. I'm gonna take some of this flour and we're gonna put this to the side as well. And now we're just gonna knead it. And so kneading, you pull from one side and push in with the heel of your palm. I'm on a movable surface, so you're gonna kind of hear that running into the wall. And we're just gonna all have to deal with that together. It's still really sticky, so I am gonna actually add some more flour. And I'm just going based off feel on this. So we want to get to smoother dough, but since it's so sticky, it's it won't be able to get to that smooth part yet. And then I'm just grabbing all those little pieces. You don't need all of them. I'm just trying to get as much as possible. But yep, and then we're just gonna merry meet again. So apologies because it looks like I lost the footage of actually kneading the dough and setting it to rest. So we're just gonna do a little bit of a recap since I believe the last time the camera shut off and we lost that footage. You want to knead it for about 12 to 15 minutes or as long as you can. Honestly, you just want to knead it to where the yeast develops. The yeast for this kind of recipe feels like mostly already developed, and so you're not going to mess it up too terribly if you don't knead it for the entire time, because it can be exhausting. That's why I'm saying this. And you're just trying to get that smooth pizza texture. And then you put it into that oiled bowl that we have, and then you put a towel or a cover over it and you let it sit in room temperature. And that is where we're at now. So yeah, sorry about losing that footage, but this is where we're at. And this is how big our pizza dough has gotten as well. And so what we're gonna do, so you'll notice this is a non-porous surface. I know we use this all the time, but non-porous means like there's no like tiny holes in it, like how your face has pores. There's nothing on here that this could potentially get stuck into or be unsticking other things. So my hands are slightly oiled right now. And what we're gonna do is just pop this out onto here, and we're gonna punch out the air a bit. So just want to get out some of those air bubbles, but we're not going to knead it too much. We've already done most of our kneading. This actually turned out really good. I didn't think I got this dough as smooth as this looks, and it looks fantastic. So this is meant to make 4. So I have my knife here. If you have a bench scraper or cutter like that, you can use it. And I'm just going to cut this into quarters. I did not oil this knife ahead of time, so We're gonna be a little bit gentle, and we're also being gentle so that our surface doesn't get cut. Okay? Not bad. Alright, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna let these rest separately here for a little bit. Sorry, I know you can't see it as well on here. A little bit better. So we're gonna go ahead, let this rest for about 10 minutes, just another like little proofing session. I do have cats, so I'm trying to limit the amount of cat hair that can possibly float around. So my trick that I always do is put the towel back over these. They're not sticky to where this kind of towel is going to stick to it. So that's the only thing, is like maybe don't use a terry cloth towel, those like super fuzzy towels. But I will be checking back in with you in 10 minutes where I don't have plastic wrap, but normally that's what you would do. You would store it with plastic wrap, but I'm going to put it into some oiled bowls and with their actual plastic covers and use that because it's still encased in plastic, and that's my logic. And then we're also going to show, we're gonna make one of the pizzas today, so I'm gonna show you just at least putting it out onto the pan. I'm gonna be using a rectangular pan, but we'll get into all that later. You won't see the full pizza here. There will be a video later. So be sure to subscribe in order to get those updates. But check in with you soon. Merry meet again. So I was so excited about this, I didn't even think you can actually put them into dough balls at this form as well. If that is what you want. Either way, they're going to get turned into much thinner pieces to become pizza doughs. But I'm gonna go ahead, start putting these into the oiled bowls that I have. And oh, the other thing that you didn't get to see, so I'll show you here, is with the bowl oiled, you want to toss this around to where it gets oiled all over. So we're gonna do that here too, just to help maintain, because this is a little bit more experimental and I don't want it to stick to the sides. And then of course you can just use your hand to help toss it. So I'm gonna do that for 3 of these. I only have so much like size ones, and we're getting smaller and smaller. I mean, I've said it before, I live in a tiny home. I have to be careful. And so that's why the smallest piece I'm going to put in for this one. And then I'm actually thinking, because there's only 3 pizzas on the Friends cookbook to make, so I'm thinking about using the smallest dough to make like custom pizza breadsticks for myself. So more to come on that. Very excited about it myself. For now though, we are going to be putting out and getting a pizza ready, because I am going to be making one of those pizzas. Again, stay tuned, or not stay tuned I guess, but subscribe so that you can see what's going on when that video is able to come out. There's multiple steps, so I'm trying to make sure. I don't know if it's next week or 2 weeks, but it will be soon. Alright, this also is a good time to let you know that this pizza dough bakes at 450 for about 12 to 15 minutes, and I always recommend just checking on it, but I've done, I believe, 15 minutes both times, and it just has turned out really well. And as you're about to see, however you roll out your dough is how you're going to really determine how much of a crust you have as well. So that's just something to note. But I have cornmeal on here because that helps give it that like restaurant pizza delivery feel, is that cornmeal on the bottom, and I had to buy it for a different recipe, and so I'm like, why not be luxurious? Anyways, so for pizza dough, what I honestly do to start getting it is I use the weight against it, and I'll start holding it and helping it stretch that way. Pull down gently, because I want to try to make it decently round. And then, but I'm going to try and add as much length as possible right now before actually putting it on top of the cornmeal pan. And then I'll continue to stretch it once it's on there too. If you're better at pizza tossing, you totally can do it. I think the like actual professional way is that you like use your knuckles underneath. And same thing though. Oh, see, yeah. I want it to be more careful because I got a hole though. But that's the concept, is using the weight against itself. Good thing it's sticky. All right, and then after a certain point, it's like, I feel like it doesn't get any bigger. So we're just gonna put it on here and use our fingers to finish stretching it out and use the stickiness to support us. Again, I'm not a professional. This is just for me. I don't need it to look good. Is this a perfect thing to do with kids for that reason? Yeah, it is. Is it also a perfect thing to do to help yourself get over any kind of shame you have in life? Also, maybe part of the reason why we're doing it today. Sorry about that, we got interrupted. So I'm just continuing to pull these out a little bit, and you can, so this is when you can make it as thin or thick as you want. So I do like to have a little bit of a crust, and then I am trying to just make sure that there's no holes. When it's baking, it's mostly gonna work out to where you just want to make sure, again, there aren't holes, but if it's thin and you can see through it, totally can be fine. I mean, it might be a little more chip-like than pizza-like, but there you go. And yeah, so you just always want to use its own weight against itself, and then I'm trying to help it be a little bit sticky to it. And then as you notice, I'm also not using a pizza stone. I don't have one, and I don't think it's reasonable to buy buy some specialty items all the time. So sometimes it's really nice, and especially if you're doing it all the time. Like I do have like a milk frother, but I use it like every morning. So it's just understanding the cost versus what you want. So I'm actually pretty happy with how this looks. This fills up my pan pretty nicely, and it's still going to get a little bit bigger, but I already know it's going to be so good. So yeah, this is our pizza dough. I'll see you guys in the next couple of videos where we're talking about the different sauces and the different pizzas. See you then.